Henry Ruggs. It was the crash that stopped the sports world. In November 2021, Henry Ruggs, the 12th overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft, was driving his Corvette through Las Vegas at a horrifying 156 miles per hour. In an instant, his life and someone else's were destroyed. His car slammed into a Toyota RAV4, causing an explosion that killed 23-year-old Tina Tintor and her dog, both trapped inside. Ruggs' blood alcohol level was twice the legal limit. The scene was pure devastation, a reminder that fame doesn't protect you from consequences. The headlines, the outrage, the disbelief, it all came crashing down overnight. Once the fastest man in the draft, Ruggs was suddenly the face of recklessness. He pleaded guilty to DUI resulting in death, and despite a potential 20-year sentence, he got just 3. It sparked anger nationwide, but also sympathy from those who saw a young man crushed by one decision. He's since expressed remorse, but the damage can't be undone. Ruggs went from highlight reels to mugshots, a haunting example of how one night can erase an entire career. And sadly, this wasn't the only NFL story that spiraled out of control. Rashee Rice. When Rashee Rice joined the Kansas City Chiefs in 2023, he looked like their next big weapon. Explosive, confident, and already a Super Bowl champion by 2024. But on March 30th, 2024, that success came crashing down, literally. Rice was reportedly racing a Corvette in a Lamborghini Urus at 119 miles per hour on a Dallas highway when he lost control, causing a 6-car pileup. Multiple people were injured. Then came the shocker. Witnesses said Rice fled the scene on foot. That single choice turned a traffic accident into a felony case. Prosecutors charged him with aggravated assault and racing on a highway. He later took a plea deal, admitting guilt and agreeing to pay over $100,000 in restitution. Now facing a 30-day jail term and 5 years probation, Rice says he's had sleepless nights and wants to make things right, but NFL punishment still looms. It's another young star learning the hard way. Success on the field doesn't erase mistakes off it. And what came next was even darker, because the next story didn't just involve recklessness, but pure violence. Chad Wheeler. Chad Wheeler's story isn't about speed or money. It's about rage. In January 2021, police in Kent, Washington responded to a chilling 911 call. Wheeler, a 6'7" former offensive lineman, had brutally attacked his girlfriend, Aaliyah Taylor. Prosecutors said he demanded she bow to him, and when she refused, he strangled her until she lost consciousness. When she woke, he reportedly said, "Oh, you're still alive." Taylor's injuries were severe: a fractured humerus, dislocated elbow, and a concussion that still affects her today. Wheeler was arrested, later claiming a bipolar episode had driven his behavior. But for many, it was a reminder that mental illness doesn't excuse brutality. A jury found him guilty on 2 counts of domestic violence assault, sentencing him to nearly 7 years in prison. His NFL career ended instantly. The photos, the police reports, all of it was gut-wrenching. And while Taylor survived, she'll carry the scars forever. Wheeler's fall from the league was swift, but the damage he caused will last a lifetime. The next case, though, wouldn't just ruin a career, it would end a life. Kellen Winslow. He was supposed to be NFL royalty. The son of Hall of Famer Kellen Winslow Sr., he had the talent, the name, and the spotlight. But behind the fame was a secret life of predation that shocked everyone. Between 2018 and 2019, multiple women accused Winslow of sexual assault, many elderly or vulnerable. Prosecutors said he cruised Southern California neighborhoods, targeting victims who trusted his fame. The allegations were horrific. In 2019, he was found guilty on several charges, including rape and sexual battery, and later accepted a plea deal for additional assaults. He was sentenced to 14 years in state prison. For fans, it was unthinkable. The Pro Bowl tight end who once dominated Sundays, now seen as a predator in handcuffs. His crimes exposed how some athletes hide darkness behind success. Even behind bars, his name carries weight, but for all the wrong reasons. Winslow's downfall was shocking, but it wouldn't be the last time an NFL star's double life was exposed, because the next player's story showed how even celebrated champions can live a nightmare of their own making. Darren Sharper. Darren Sharper's name once meant greatness. 5 Pro Bowls, a Super Bowl ring, 63 interceptions. But beneath that legacy was one of the most disturbing criminal cases in NFL history. From 2010 to 2014, Sharper traveled the country from California to Louisiana, drugging and assaulting women he met while partying. Investigators discovered a calculated pattern. sleeping pills disguised as drinks, victims waking up confused, and horrifying revelations afterward. The evidence spanned 4 states, forcing a complex federal case. In 2016, Sharper pleaded guilty to multiple counts of assault and drug distribution. A judge rejected his 9-year plea deal as too lenient and sentenced him to 20 years. Once a Hall of Fame contender, he's now a registered offender serving time in federal prison. His story shattered the illusion of the hero athlete and forced fans to confront how far some will fall. And yet, the darkness of Sharper's crimes made others' downfalls seem tame because the next story isn't about predation, it's about violence, revenge, and a Super Bowl champion turned criminal. Brandon Browner. Brandon Browner was a key member of the Seahawks Legion of Boom, a champion with swagger and back-to-back Super Bowl rings. But by 2018, his life was unrecognizable. Police in Laverne, California, arrested him for breaking into his ex-girlfriend's home, dragging her, and threatening her life, all in front of her children. He even stole a Rolex before fleeing. The details were horrifying. Browner's descent from NFL fame to attempted murder charges stunned fans and teammates alike. Once known for his physical play, he was now infamous for real-world violence. Surveillance footage sealed his fate. He pleaded no contest to attempted murder and cruelty to a child, receiving an 8-year sentence. His fall was quick, brutal, and irreversible. How does a champion go from holding the Lombardi Trophy to holding a prison? It's a question with too many answers. Addiction, anger, ego, and none of them good. But just when it seemed the NFL's darkest stories had peaked, the next one added a terrifying layer of mystery and tragedy. Kevin Ware Jr. Kevin Ware Jr. wasn't a household name, but his story became one of the NFL's most chilling tragedies. Once a tight end for Washington and San Francisco, his career fizzled. But years later, his name resurfaced in the worst way. In 2021, his girlfriend, Taylor Pomaski, vanished after a house party in Texas. Witnesses described a violent argument before she disappeared. For months, the case grew colder, until investigators uncovered human remains buried in a shallow grave. DNA confirmed it was Pomaski, Ware, already jailed on unrelated charges, became the prime suspect. Prosecutors said he murdered her and tried to hide the evidence. In 2025, he pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 30 years in prison. The case stunned fans and horrified even seasoned detectives, a once promising athlete turned killer. Another reminder that some stories go far beyond football. But that's not all, because as the scandals piled up, one case revealed that sometimes crime doesn't even start with violence. It starts with greed. Robert McCune. Robert McCune's crime wasn't about rage or revenge. It was about money. The former linebacker, known for his military discipline and toughness, masterminded a massive healthcare fraud scheme targeting the NFL's player insurance fund. Between 2017 and 2018, McCune and several others submitted fake claims for hyperbaric chambers and cryotherapy machines that never existed. The scam totaled nearly $3 million. McCune, the supposed role model, was the ringleader. Investigators said he even impersonated other players to approve reimbursements. In 2021, he pleaded guilty to conspiracy and wire fraud, receiving a 5-year federal sentence. It wasn't as bloody or shocking as other crimes, but it showed a different kind of corruption. Calculated, greedy, and cold. For fans, it was another gut punch. A man who once fought for every yard now stealing from those who needed help. And just when you think the fraud was bad enough, it gets worse. Because up next is a case that mixed paranoia, gunfire, and a shocking act of violence in broad daylight. But first, only cool people are subscribed to this channel, so hit that subscribe button before we go any further. Justin Bannan. Justin Bannan's life after football spiraled into something no one saw coming. A respected defensive lineman who played 13 seasons for teams like the Ravens and Broncos, he was known for intelligence and grit. But in 2019, that calm exterior snapped. One afternoon in Boulder, Colorado, Bannan walked into an acupuncture clinic he frequented, pulled a gun, and shot a woman working there. She survived, barely. When police found him, he was armed, paranoid, and claiming he was being hunted by the Russian mafia. Investigators later found cocaine residue in his possession and evidence of mental deterioration from brain trauma. His defense pointed to CTE, but prosecutors saw clear intent. In 2021, a jury convicted him of attempted murder and assault with a deadly weapon. The judge handed down 16 years. For many, it was a tragic example of how mental collapse and violence can coexist. A chilling look at what life after the NFL can do to the brain. And while Bannan's case raised questions about safety and sanity, the next story dove straight back into pure horror, one that still shocks people to this day. Keith Wright once dreamed of NFL glory, but his legacy became a nightmare. After short stints with the Texans and Colts, Wright's career fizzled out. and what came next was terrifying. Between 2011 and 2012, he committed a string of violent home invasions in Northern California. Prosecutors said he posed as a real estate agent to get into homes, then tied up and assaulted women at gunpoint. Some victims were attacked repeatedly. Investigators connected him to the crimes through DNA, discovering a trail of robbery, assault, and fear. It was a pattern so brutal that even seasoned detectives were shaken. In 2012, Wright was found guilty of 19 felonies, including multiple assaults and armed robberies, and sentenced to an unfathomable 234 years in prison. The crimes were so numerous, his sentence was essentially a life term several times over. For fans who remembered him as a strong defensive tackle, it was unreal. But as horrific as Wright's case was, the next story somehow felt even darker, because it wasn't just violence. It was organized crime on a massive scale. Frankie Neal's fall from the NFL spotlight didn't end with a quiet retirement. It turned into a full-blown criminal empire. Drafted in 1987 by the Green Bay Packers, Neal played just one season. But decades later, he became a central figure in a massive Florida drug ring. Prosecutors said he moved kilos of cocaine through multiple states, using old football connections to run the operation like a business. It wasn't sloppy street dealing. It was structured, efficient, and ruthless. Federal agents tapped phones, tracked shipments, and built their case piece by piece. When the hammer finally fell, the evidence was overwhelming. Cash, ledgers, and coded messages linking Neal to major drug runs. In 2017, he was convicted of trafficking and sentenced to 30 years in federal prison. His story became another cautionary tale. Proof that even after the game, some players keep chasing high-risk thrills until it all collapses. And while Neal built an empire of drugs, the next man joined a cult. One so violent, it blurred the line between faith and fanaticism. Robert Rozier. Robert Rozier's name might be the darkest of them all. A second-round NFL pick with freakish athleticism, he played only 6 games before vanishing into obscurity. Then the truth emerged. He had joined a Miami-based religious cult called the Nation of Yahweh, led by a self-proclaimed messiah. Within the group, Rozier became an enforcer, carrying out gruesome loyalty tests that involved killing people deemed enemies. He later confessed to 7 murders. The violence was ritualistic, chilling, and beyond comprehension. Eventually, Rozier cooperated with federal prosecutors, helping convict the cult's leader in a racketeering case. But even after serving time, he couldn't escape his past. Under a new identity, he was arrested again in the 2000s for check fraud, and under California's 3 strikes law, sentenced to 25 years to life. From NFL promise to cult assassin, his story feels like something out of fiction, but it's all real. And yet, even with all that horror, there was still one name left, the most infamous of all: Aaron Hernandez. Aaron Hernandez was more than an NFL star. He was a cultural shockwave. A dynamic tight end for the New England Patriots, he played with Tom Brady, scored in the Super Bowl, and signed a $40 million contract. But in 2013, it all shattered. Hernandez was arrested and later convicted for the murder of Odin Lloyd, a man who was dating his fiance's sister. The evidence was overwhelming: surveillance footage, ballistics, and phone records. The courtroom became a national obsession. Even as he faced life behind bars, Hernandez's story took darker turns. Another double murder trial, erratic behavior, and haunting letters from prison. Then, in 2017, he was found dead in his cell. The autopsy revealed severe CTE, shocking doctors for his young age. It changed how the world viewed football's hidden costs. From stadium cheers to silence behind bars, Hernandez's fall was a modern tragedy, a warning of how fame, violence, and mental decay can collide in the worst way. And while his story closed one chapter, the next case pushed the limits of betrayal and brutality even further. Darryl Henley. Darryl Henley once looked like a rising star, a smooth-talking cornerback for the Los Angeles Rams with a bright future. But behind the charm, a darker story was brewing. In 1995, federal agents uncovered his involvement in a massive cocaine trafficking ring stretching across multiple states. Henley was convicted and sentenced to 20 years in prison. But that wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. While awaiting appeal, he plotted to have the judge and a key witness murdered. The hitmen he hired turned out to be undercover FBI agents. The recordings were damning, and the plot was so outrageous, it stunned investigators. In 1996, he received an additional 21 years, bringing his total to 41 behind bars. Henley went from NFL stardom to one of the most infamous inmates in sports history. His story is a reminder that arrogance and desperation can destroy even the most promising lives. And as wild as that was, the final case takes us somewhere darker still. A story of innocence lost and a crime too disturbing to imagine. Justin Crawford. Justin Crawford's story is one of the most unsettling of all. A college standout at West Virginia, he rushed for over 1,000 yards twice and seemed destined for NFL success. But in 2018, everything collapsed when he was arrested for abusing a 12-year-old family member. Police reports described a horrifying scene. Crawford's own wife discovered him and called authorities. During questioning, Crawford denied it, then changed his story multiple times. In 2019, he pleaded guilty to child molestation and was sentenced to 12 years in prison, followed by 8 years of probation. He must now register as a sex offender for life. For fans, it was unthinkable. A hometown hero turned into a symbol of betrayal. His name vanished from highlight reels and was erased from the sport's memory. Out of all the cases, this one hit hardest, not because of fame or fortune, but because of how deeply it broke the trust of everyone who ever believed in him. If you like this video, consider watching this next one, which YouTube thinks you are going to really love.